gamers are suing Microsoft to thwart its merger with Activision. The FTC isn't the only one saying, hang on a minute there. The Jane Antitrust Act of 1914 gives Americans the right to sue companies over anti-competitive behavior, a fact which 10 self-described gamers are using to take Microsoft to court, aiming to halt the company's acquisition of Activision. Okay, as reported by Bloomberg Law, the complaint filed today and obtained by Kotaku states that the plaintiffs, or video gamers as they're described, are concerned that the Microsoft and Activision merger may substantially lessen competition or tend to create a monopoly. This merger, the complaint states, which would specifically be in violation of Section 7 of the Clayton Act, which states that acquisitions that diminish competition are prohibited under U.S. antitrust law. The complaint not only cites the scale and scope of the Activision and Microsoft merger as problematic, but also that the latest proposal union follows numerous other Microsoft acquisitions, ranging from its 2014 purchase of Mojang all the way back to its acquisition of Rare in 2002. Thoroughly laying out console, PC, and AAA gaming, as well as subscription service as relevant product markets, the suit calls attention to just how many large franchises will fall under Microsoft's corporate umbrella should the merger go through. Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Minecraft, Doom, Microsoft Flight Simulator. Oh yeah, that's really a big game changer. Halo and The Elder Scrolls are just some of the cited examples. It maintains that currently Microsoft and Activision compete directly through these titles and services like Battle.net, the Microsoft Store, and Game Pass. The merger would shatter that competitive dynamic. So what? It's a home run. Big deal. Should the merger go through, the suit claims, Microsoft would hold outsized market power and the ability to foreclose key inputs to rivals and further harm competition. The suit mentions competition both whereas it concerns sales to customers as well as the competition in the industry to hire and retain talent within specialized video game labor, which would be lessened under the merger. Kotaku has reached out to Microsoft for comment. The proposed Microsoft-Activision merger has been a lightning rod for controversy ever since its initial announcement. Perhaps most worrying for Microsoft is the recently filed lawsuit from the FTC. The feds allege that should this merger go through, it would pose serious harm to competition in the video game industry, citing past behavior of Microsoft to prioritize Xbox and Windows PCs as platforms for its games. Microsoft has disagreed, stating that the Activision acquisition would bring Call of Duty to more gamers and more platforms than ever before. Speaking of Call of Duty, in response to criticisms of its intended merger with Activision, Microsoft has pledged to continue to deliver Call of Duty to other platforms for at least 10 years. Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer has categorized Sony's criticisms of the acquisition as an attempt to protect its dominant position on console, and that it seeks to grow by making Xbox smaller. So, what do you think of gamers actually going out of their way to sue Microsoft to stop this merger? I mean, I think this is like an overreach.
Yeah, it is, because us gamers, see, we have power, potentially speaking. Obviously, we are the consumers that consume these games and consoles and systems, such and such. But in the end, this is a company-to-company issue, not really a customer itself trying to interfere with these matters at hand. Personally, myself, I don't mind the acquisition between Microsoft and Blizzard, Activision, and all. I actually invested in some stock with Blizzard, Activision for a few months, but I withdrew from it at the last moment, because it was getting lower and lower in quantity, and value and stuff within the stocks. But other than that, that's it, and let things be. I did explain this to the younger gamers. So, like, hey guys, having Xbox 6 oversee all these developmental works of Bethesda and Blizzard, Activision, put those two together, and Microsoft oversees these matters of these companies, kind of creates this shitstorm. And it doesn't seem like a shitstorm at first, because obviously it's more of like a convenience to both the consumer and the company as well. So my point is that the customer shouldn't really just interfere with these matters because they feel it's a bad thing on their part. Let the process happen. Give it a couple of years, maybe 5 years at most, and see what happens. If Microsoft turns into the dictatorship of a company, you break up the monopoly. That's all. So.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, no one was complaining when Sony and Microsoft went on buying sprees, buying this studio, buying that studio, buying this studio. No one seemed to care until it was Activision-Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
What makes Activision-Blizzard so off limits that a company can't buy it? And like they said, Call of Duty, they'd bring it to Nintendo, they'd bring it to Steam, they'd keep it on PlayStation. So what's the problem?
I think the problem is that there is history with the company of its sexual harassment claims, especially over the decades.
With Activision-Blizzard, yeah.
Yeah, but that's like a grudge between like certain gamers or community of gamers, and then they want their payback through this matter by preventing the acquisition to Microsoft, so that it will become more powerful and more influent in the gaming community at large. That's my opinion. That's how I look at it. It's more of a little get together to try to stop things. That's all.
I just think it's a bunch of people that are blowing this way out of proportion, because like you said, let the studios handle this. Let Microsoft and Sony handle this. Unless someone else wants to buy Activision Blizzard, that's the only reason anyone else would have to stake interest in it. Because I mean, no one was complaining when Sony and Microsoft were buying other studios.
Oh yeah.
So, like I said, it's just weird. This one is supposedly hands-off. And the thing is, with what Phil Spencer has promised or said he wants to do, it sounds good for more people to get Call of Duty, not less. So the argument that it's going to become a monopoly, should we really go over what Sony owns and see, and do a comparison? I mean, yeah, Microsoft also owns Halo because they created it. Are we complaining that Microsoft and Windows has a monopoly on Halo?
Good points. Very good points.
Ready to move on to the next part about this? Because we got a couple more articles on this story.
Yeah, let's continue on.
Alright. Next. 75% of UK public comments support Microsoft acquisition of Activision. Most were broadly in favor of the merger. As the UK's Competition and Markets Authority continues to assess Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, public sentiment appears to be on Microsoft's side, with around 75% of public comments pro-merger. The CMA invited the public to share their thoughts on the Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger as part of its inquiry into the pending acquisition. The CMA revealed that it received over 2,100 emails during this phase, and that around three-quarters were broadly in favor of the merger, and around a quarter were broadly against the merger. Among the responses the CMA received and shared as part of its briefing included views such as Sony and Nintendo are stronger than Microsoft in console gaming, and the merger will help Microsoft compete more closely against them. And the merger is a reaction to Sony's business model for PlayStation, which has historically involved securing exclusive content or early access to popular cross-platform gaming franchises such as Final Fantasy and Silent Hill. Views from those against the merger included responses such as Microsoft is already dominant in PC operating systems, and this merger is an attempt to gain a similar position in gaming, and this would be the largest merger in gaming history, paving the way for potential string of future acquisitions of publishers such as Take-Two, EA, Ubisoft, hereby increasing concentration in the market. The UK opened up its investigation to public opinion in October after completing the first two phases of its investigation into the Microsoft-Activision merger. The CMA plans to keep gathering evidence and publish provisional findings before a final report, which is still months away. Meanwhile, the deal continues to be under scrutiny as the US FTC announced its plans to sue to block the acquisition, calling the deal harmful to competition in high-performance gaming consoles and subscriptions. So, the United Kingdom, the people who responded, most three-quarters said they're in favor of this merger actually happening.
I see. Wow.
I think we can agree we really don't care. But the thing is, I will say, if this merger does not happen, if this acquisition of Activision Blizzard does not happen, and Microsoft cannot own it, do not come to me when Sony wants to buy it and say, "Oh, they should have the right to buy it."
Oh yeah.
Because that would be ridiculous. And like I said, everyone's saying they know what Phil Spencer's going to do, but how many of those people read his comments and are actually listening to what he says?
Yeah.
I mean, and they mentioned Ubisoft, Take-Two, EA. Unless those companies start getting in trouble financially, they're not going to sell to anyone.
Yeah. And we know that Sony, this is what I'm hearing too in some gaming circles, Sony's considered to be like a backstabber when it comes down to business deals. So one time, like, you work with Sony, everything works well at first, but all of a sudden when things hit the fan, now Sony wants to either back out or backstab you with another renegotiation or cutthroat in, and then you're left with short to sell with their products or their services or both. That's what I hear about Sony. So Microsoft, on the other hand, of course, they have their own little business practices, but it's nothing like devastating the overall economy or the overall finances of the gaming community at large. So it's either, do or don't, do or die. It's just, that's all it is right now. And the United Kingdom spoke their word, and the United Kingdom has their own, what's called the ratings board, PEGI, and we have our ESRB here in the United States. So we are gamers who are at least trying to contribute somehow, way other means and ends, and that's it. It is what it is, right? So give it some time, give it 5 years, see what happens with Microsoft, Activision, and Blizzard. So
yeah. So that's what. So we know what the UK public thinks. At least the ones that responded back.
Mm-hmm.
We know what some people think that are suing Microsoft. Let's find out what the FTC is saying, because that's our final part on this story surrounding the acquisition. Microsoft says, oh no, actually this is different. Microsoft says the FTC violates the Constitution by blocking Activision Blizzard acquisition. Microsoft's road to acquire Activision Blizzard has been a rocky one, to say the least. The most recent and significant roadblock comes from the American Federal Trade Commission, which filed a lawsuit a few weeks ago to prevent the deal from going through. Now, Microsoft has fired back with a response saying the FTC is violating their Fifth Amendment rights to due process. The full document claims that the deal should be allowed to go through for several other reasons as well, stating that Xbox and Activision Blizzard are just two of hundreds of game publishers. This claims that the FTC violates the Constitution are listed on page 34 and are just a handful of defenses against the lawsuit in a list of 24. While the basis of the FTC's lawsuit is that Microsoft's deal will suppress the competition by limiting access to certain titles, Microsoft's response claims that Xbox wants to grow its presence in mobile gaming, and 3/4 of Activision's gamers and more than a third of its revenue comes from mobile offerings. The FTC does not appear to be concerned with this. Their complaint excludes mobile gaming as a relevant market, and instead focuses on the fact that Microsoft will own one of the largest game franchises in the world, Call of Duty. The acquisition would place Microsoft in a position to make the series an Xbox exclusive, but the company has repeatedly reiterated that they have no plans to make this happen. In this most recent response to the FTC, Microsoft claims that its goal is to actually make the series more accessible. In addition to promises that the series would remain on PlayStation consoles, Microsoft committed to bringing the series to Nintendo consoles for the next 10 years, throwing any exclusivity out the window. The acquisition of a single game by the third-place console manufacturer cannot upend a highly competitive industry, Microsoft's response says. This is particularly so when the manufacturer has made clear it will not withhold the game. Currently, it's unclear whether or not the $69 billion deal will go through, or if Microsoft's claim of unconstitutional actions will have any effect on the FTC's intent to block it. So we've heard a lot of people talking about it. That was Microsoft's response. How familiar are you with the due process? I thought that was just like if you're being suspected of a crime. I
plead the fifth.
Yeah, or the right to remain silent. I mean, I had no idea this had to do with like business purchases.
It's not self-incriminating. I hope not, because it's just business. It's a business deal. That's all it is. I'm very surprised the Constitution is involved with the matter. And yes, this is a multinational corporation, Microsoft, Activision-Blizzard, because they appeal to other countries like the United Kingdom, parts of Africa, and even in Southeast Asia and Asia. And personally, myself, the Constitution, only the United States, that's a little bit of a jab at the deal. Like you don't want, it's just regular gamers or hardcore gamers don't want to see this fully happening in their time of living here on Earth as a gamer, and that's all it is. It's something where it's like I don't mind it at first. It's like whatever. Let's see what happens in a few months, few years. Other than that, it's just something that you can't prevent. Business will always continue to happen, no matter where we go in the world. Wherever we do in our world, and you can't just stop business from happening because you don't feel like you want to be current. So
yeah, I have to say that's also I don't know how credible that Fifth Amendment argument is, but we have covered Microsoft every step of the way anytime there was major development, and they've never once said they wanted to make Call of Duty exclusive. They, as a matter of fact, said they wanted to make what was that?
10 years.
No. What's that other game? What's that mobile game they said that they were more interested in?
Diablo? I doubt it.
Not Diablo. That's someone different. Oh, I can't think of it. It's under Activision-Blizzard. They said they wanted to make
World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft.
Oh, well, they said they wanted to make whatever it is. They said they wanted to make they were more interested in the mobile game, and no company has complained about that. And like I said, if they should. They said they were offering to give Call of Duty to any console that wants it. So I mean, it's kind of like we're spinning the wheels. It's and like you said, give them a chance. But now I've been defending Microsoft. Now we have an actual response that I just read from them. So anything else to add, or ready to move on?
Yeah, like because of the Constitution, that's more of like a governmental matter than a business matter. So yes, I mean I'm sure there are laws in the books in public law, for example, that helps reinforce integrity in business for how many centuries, just the 1700s. But other than that, it's like it's just a business deal. It's not like you try to take over the government or whatever, nothing of that sort. So I don't know what to say much about that. So.
This isn't the first time FTC overstepped its bounds. I remember when they wanted to sue YouTube creators for if they were wrong about whether or not their video was made for kids.
COPPA thing.
Mm-hmm. That COPPA thing. Although Google is just as much to blame. So, ready to move on, or?
Yeah, let's continue forward.